when you see your tomato leaves roll or whatever, a lot of times you don't have to get worried. There's usually not any cause for alarm because most of the time a tomato leaf curl is stress related. Of course, stress is not ideal for plants. It's usually not fatal. So we need to go through and kind of take a checklist of what's been going on in the prior days or weeks ahead. A lot of times when people see it now, there's been so much talk about herbicide exposure or viral disease. These are the two less common ones, although they do happen, but not as frequently as you might think. The number one cause of tomato curl or leaf curl is watering. Tomato plants don't like to be underwatered or overwatered. Either one of these conditions will cause stress. You're giving them too much water and they're sitting in a soggy condition, or they're not watered correctly enough. You've heard me say before, the best way to do watering on a tomato is not overhead. That is a potential cause of spread disease if there's any that's been blown in around the soil, whatever, and it splatters up underneath the leaves, and then you have a potential to get a disease that causes leaf curls. I like to always mulch my tomato plants. That way it takes care of this, and always water at the stem. Water at the bottom at the ground level when you're watering. We talked about this before about making sure that they did get enough water, but make sure the soil that you put them in does have drainage, and do that. A tomato, to produce a good fruit, likes an even watering. Here's another reason that we've had a lot of that here lately is excessive heat. It goes hand in hand with underwatering. Excessive heat is a problem, and in the summertime, when tomatoes will struggle to adjust, especially with the days that, like we've been having here, that will run up close to 100 degrees, and for 2 or 3 days, then we're back down. At nights in the 50s, and then we're back up, and to the nights are 75, and the daytime's 97, and with wind blowing, too, that makes it even that much worse. So it can be a stress caused by heat. That's one thing that you want to look at. Have you had any excessive heat in the last few weeks or whatever? Another cause is too much nitrogen. A lot of people like to over-fertilize their tomato plants. Too much nitrogen will also cause that leaf curl. It's simply taking up more than what it needs, and will cause a burning or a curling effect on those leaves and make it look like. The reason we're doing this is either one of these things can make it look like the other when you see your leaves curling. Excessive pruning. Now, there's a good rule of thumb with most shrubs and trees. You never want to prune over a third of the plant. It's called a hard pruning. With tomatoes, we don't want to do that hard pruning at all. If you do need to get the intermediate suckers out, either by pinching them off or cutting them, make sure that your pruners have been sterilized, washed off thoroughly, cut those out. But please don't take but about 20% of the plant at the most. And if it's during these real hot summer months, then take that pruning out and spread it out over a week or 2 weeks, whatever. Of course, if it's young and you're getting leaf curl, it could be transplant shot coming out of a pot going into the ground with too much water, again, not enough. Wind blowing, temperature-wise, this is a lot of things that could cause transplant shot. Also, we do talk about herbicide exposure. It can cause the leaves to curl. You can get that from a spray in the wind, or it's be an overspray, or it could be in the soil. These are things that you want to look at too. once that these plants, if they do have a herbicidal issue, it's hard to recover these plants. Also, there's another one, a viral disease. These do happen. This is a word that most gardeners don't want to hear, especially when it comes in the cause of leaf curl. Tomato yellow leaf curl virus is self-explanatory. The leaves can curl and turn pale yellow or green on the edges rather than rolling completely inwards. In stress-related cases, this virus causes the leaves to turn slightly upwards in a cup-like fashion. So you can do it. It's usually spread by whiteflies who carry the disease to all the tomatoes in your garden. If you do have some plants that has this problem and some that's not, you may want to go ahead and get rid of those plants just to make sure that that doesn't spread to the rest. Tomato mosaic virus causes the leaves to roll, but it's extinguished by other symptoms. It's like unusual spotting, coloring on the leaves, and browning on the inside of the fruits. So there's several different diseases out there. And when buying your tomato plants or your tomato seeds, you can also tell for that. Now, your heirlooms are usually the worst to get disease. Some of the new hybrids have been bred so that they don't take on some of these diseases. But again, these are all the things. You can't just go, look, my tomato leaves are curls and it's, say, lack of water or it's a herbicide. You need to go back through and kind of do a random think in your mind of what's been going on the last several weeks and the environment to see what's caused it. And again, we'll go over it. This watering would be one. Overhead watering is a no-no. Too much water, not enough water, not being consistent with a tomato plant, and you can get this. It actually weakens the immune system, and therefore, if they are diseased, it makes it easier to get. Excessive heat in the summer months can be another one that will get your tomato plants. That's just the way it is. So you may want to look at something if you know there's a lot of heat coming. You may want to provide maybe some type of shade netting on that. Too much nitrogen. We don't want to apply too much. I know we get excited about having grapevines and big tomatoes, but too much nitrogen will also act the same way. Nitrogen will cause those leaves to curl and could do more damage to the plant than actually good. Excessive pruning, we talked about that. Make sure that if you need to do a lot of suckering on these plants, and especially in the hot weather, make sure that you spread it out over several weeks when you do that, because you don't want to take out a big percentage of that plant in this weather. Make sure your pruners are clean before you do that. And when we talked about transplant shock, that would be when you're planting a new one. We did talk about the herbicide exposure being a leaf curl and then a viral disease. So if you're experiencing these, some of these things will come right out. Correct your watering on your too much nitrogen. You can go on in and we'll flush it with some water, just a little bit more than usual. Just don't drown the plant and help push some of that nitrogen on down into the soil away from them would be one. Watering practices, like I say, overhead. Another one is if you can go ahead, even if you haven't mulched that plant now, and that makes a world of difference from here on out, because if you do have tomatoes this time of the season, this is June, they're usually just starting now and you're looking for tomatoes all the way to frost, go ahead and mulch that with a good straw or a wooden mulch, and that would work well. So hopefully this would help you on to answer some of the questions when you do see leaf curl on tomato plants. Some of these can be corrected by just a simple practice of how you're either watering or pruning or how you're fertilizing. Well, if you get a moment, if you would, go to our website, daddypete's.com, and you can click on our podcast, join in, listen. And while you're there, if you'd like to, you can sign up for our email. We'll send that out to you. Well, it's completely free. I think we do it once a month, maybe more. And while you're there, you can also check out all the products that we offer, our potting mixes, our soil conditioners, our soil amendments, and our mulches. And also, we are a dairy here in North Carolina that's a soil company. We've been around since 1907. Check out our About page while you're there at the website. I think you'll find that interesting. And most of all, we just want to wish you happy gardening. And this is Melvin York. I'm with Gardening with Daddy Pete.